So welcome everybody seeing the chat. Thank y'all so much for joining. People from all over the state in these regions doing powerful work, right? And this is the initiative, the funding opportunity for community-based organizations, a capacity building initiative to expand community-based service for youth involved in the criminal legal system. So thank y'all for joining. If you have audio issues using computer speakers, you can join the audio by phone. You can dial these numbers here with the meeting ID and the passcode. All participants are muted. If you have any questions during the webinars, please submit them through the chat feature. Click chat on top of the screen, select all panelists as the option, as the recipient. With that, again, as I had shared earlier, this initiative and funding opportunity is funded by the Office of Youth and Community Restoration. And we ourselves are the center at Sierra Health Foundation. We are co-led by Kai-Ying Heng, president of the center, Matt Cervantes, associate vice president of programs, myself, senior program officer of Transform Youth Justice, and Antonia Gonzalez, program associate with the Transform Youth Justice and Elevate Youth California teams. Center brings together internal teams that support funding opportunities and initiatives like these. This include communications team and an evaluation team. Our team members here, part of the communications team, are Samantha Garcia and Lisa Weir. And for the evaluations team is Dr. Maurice Samuels and Dr. Anthony Maikuri. We also have additional team members, which include our finance team, Scott, Sant, and Lucas Cole, and our contract risk and compliance team, Joanne Cassis and Carissa Rogers. Together, we definitely make this happen internally, A through Z. So thank you all so much. What we do is bring together people, a range of capacities and team, ideas and infrastructure together to create positive changes in California. We're dedicated to health and racial equity. For example, we're the managing entity of the Elevate Youth California program funded through Prop 64 funding in partnership with the California Department of Healthcare Services. With that said, I'll pass it to National Center for Youth Law, Alejandra, who will introduce the NICL team.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Alejandra Gutierrez. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a policy attorney with the National Center for Youth Law, also known as NICL for our acronym. We're really excited to be a part of this initiative and excited to work with those selected for this initiative. Here we have the team that will be working with you all. We have Frankie Guzman, who's our senior director, Jasmine Amons, our senior program and policy manager, Daria Larissa Day, our senior policy attorney, and Raimundo Armendariz, senior community policy associate. So NICL is a youth advocacy organization that focuses on advancing, protecting, and defending the rights of children and youth, particularly those who have been impacted by systems like the juvenile legal system, other systems like child welfare, immigration, as well as education and health. Our team who will be working on this initiative is the Youth Justice team, and our goal is to support efforts to reduce the reliance on the juvenile legal system and ensure that young people who are either impacted or at risk of being impacted by the juvenile legal system have the support that they need, and that the support is age appropriate, that it's trauma informed, culturally rooted, and health and healing based, and more than anything, available out in the community. Our goal for youth justice is to shift away from the current punitive model of punishment that is really housed under a corrections model and shift towards a model and approach that is rooted in positive youth development and public health. So again, we're really excited to work with many of you. We'll be able to share more about the actual technical assistance support that we'll be able to provide under this initiative. So I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll hand it over to Public Works Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. I'm Mateo Payne, and I'm the lead for Public Works Alliance Justice Serving Network, and we are supporting org for this capacity building initiative. Public Works Alliance works with organizations that support youth impacted by the criminal legal system. And our main focus at PWA is shifting power and agency. And with regard to youth involved in the criminal legal system, we're shifting money from larger institutions to smaller community-based organizations, and also shifting who is qualified and supported to do this work, to work with these families and communities, to include more credible messengers and folks with shared lived experience and cultural background as the families are serving. So I'm gonna pass it to Kaya, who can introduce herself.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Mateo. My name is Kaya Stern. I'm calling in from Tongva Land in LA, and my role with Public Works Alliance is to help guide the justice serving network, and we partner with the center to, of course, help build capacity by investing in community-based solutions that are essential to realize justice in an effort to interrupt these deeply entrenched problems by design. And I'm so grateful to be here with you and to learn about the work you're doing. Thank you. I'm going to pass it back to Abraham.
Thank you so much, PWA team and Nickel team. And as y'all are realizing, it's a very powerful team coming together. Thank y'all. We have about 142 participants, maybe reflective of about the same number of organizations. So very powerful coming together to advance shifting agency and power back to communities, and also transforming the paradigm that currently exists in terms of approaches to justice. With that said, the agenda today is program background, the funding opportunity, how to apply, and how to be competitive in your application. So we'll go right into it. This is the purpose of this Transform Your Justice community-based organization capacity building initiative, which will take place from this year, 2024 to 2026. The purpose: to improve intergenerational life course outcomes of youth involved in the criminal legal system by providing funding to support CBOs expand their capacity to meet the social determinants of health needs of this group of youth, ages 12 to 26. Awarded organizations will also be encouraged to develop or strengthen diversion programs to advance health and racial equity. The awarded organizations will receive assistance TA provided by the National Center for Youth Law and Public Works Alliance teams, as well as the team members from the center at Sierra Health Foundation. So those are our offerings to those that are eventually going to be awarded. And organizations awarded will also take part in at least 3 learning community opportunities. We're focusing on 1 to 2 year goals of improving skills and knowledge of staff in the capacity building areas identified by your organization. That could include programming, financials, organization, data infrastructure. You as an organization get to set those. Throughout this initiative, we'll also be looking at improved knowledge about decision makers and key stakeholders in your own county's juvenile justice system. The third goal or outcome is increased coordination and collaboration among funded partners to advance youth justice transformation efforts. And lastly, the initiative aims to improve organizations' infrastructure to apply for, receive, and manage funding from different sources: county, state, federal, philanthropic, school districts. Want to make sure that at the end of this, organizations are able to contract successfully with public agencies. With that said, those are the goals of the initiative. Now we'll go to funding program overview. The funding opportunity itself, over a period of approximately 26 months, up to 8 community-based organizations will each receive $500,000 to expand organizational capacity for services inclusive of diversion programs of youth involved in the criminal legal system ages 12 to 26 in 4 regions in California. The awarded funds will prioritize expanding the organizational capacity of emerging grassroots community-based organizations and tribal organizations, including federally designated 638 Indian Health Services providers, and which are CBOs and urban clinics. Up to 20% of direct costs may be requested as indirect costs, and the award period will be specifically from September 1, 2024 to October 31, 2026. So that's a little bit more into detail about this funding opportunity. The organizational focus here. The OICR, or the Transform Youth Justice CBO Capacity Building Initiative, will focus on 2 types of organizations and is open to CBOs that may have a contract with the county or city agency in their area to provide some of these services. So your organization, if you already have a contract with the county or city agency, you're not ineligible. Yeah, organizations may already have existing contracts. What we're really focusing on is that organizations are either already serving youth, right? Grassroots community-based organizations engaged in social justice advocacy, or direct service organizations serving youth ages 12 to 18, who are looking for funding and working to access or establish relationships with juvenile justice system stakeholders in these regions, or CBOs not yet serving youth. These are the same grassroots or community-based organizations engaged in social justice advocacy or direct services, but are not yet serving youth under 18. For organizations that are not yet serving youth, we are going to be looking for experience serving transition age youth ages up to age 26. So between 18 and 26. Those are going to be the organizations that we'll be looking for, focusing on, and the intent and purpose of this capacity building initiative. In terms of communities of focus, reflective of regional equity, the committee had a lot of input from OICR itself, a work group within OICR, which is the OICR CBO Capacity Development Work Group, and also several stakeholders, right? It was decided that for this initiative to reflect regional equity, the focus of the funding opportunity would be in Northern California, meaning north of the Bay Area, East Bay Area, and Sacramento. The counties are listed here. Eligible counties are listed here. Also, Sierra Nevada region and its eligible counties. The Inland Empire, Imperial Valley region, including Imperial, Riverside, and San Bernardino, and the San Joaquin Valley region, and the eligible counties listed here. These are the communities of focus reflective of regional equity. This initiative does put forth guiding principles. So we will be looking at programming projects through these lenses, through that really uplift these guiding principles. This initiative is rooted in the guiding principles that services inclusive of diversion programs that provided by community-based organizations to youth involved in the criminal legal system must be healing-based, trauma-informed, gender-responsive, culturally and linguistically appropriate, and developmentally appropriate. And this is to highlight, right, that it's about what y'all know and what y'all do every day. It's about the needs of the youth. So that's what roots these guiding principles. We also have a rooting framework, and is elaborated more in the RFA, but the rooting framework is social justice youth development and positive youth justice approaches to meeting the needs of youth involved in the criminal legal system. Both social justice youth development and PYJ as frameworks or models expand on the scientific literature of positive youth development. However, PYJ applies positive youth development approaches in the juvenile justice system context, and social justice youth development expands positive youth development to address social and systemic factors, including racism, xenophobia, and other racial inequities that youth face as they develop into adulthood. With that said, you could read more in depth about the rooting framework and its relationship to meeting the social determinants of health needs of youth in the RFA, and how those rooting frameworks challenge systemic inequities, such as the school to prison to deportation pipeline, housing insecurity, homelessness, just to name a few. Maybe we'll do a little bit of focus on a visual that brings all of those concepts together. What we have here is what will inform this initiative and what we'll be looking as we review, what we'll be looking at as we review applications. Is your application reflective of the guiding principles or the program services that you're presenting reflective of guiding principles? Are they, do they uplift models of social justice youth development? Do they uplift strength-based approaches, such as positive youth justice approaches and frameworks? So with that, we're also looking at how programs and services aim to meet the social determinants of health needs of youth. So with that, hopefully this visual is helpful. We move to glossary. The glossary can be found in the RFA document on pages 5 and 6. Some of the terms that we will be familiarizing ourselves with, if not already familiar with, will be adverse childhood experiences, capacity building, community-based organization, gender responsive, gender transformative, harm reduction, healing-based practices, intersectionality. So these are concepts defined in the RFA, along with the ones listed here. And we'll focus on a couple. For example, what do we mean by healing-based practices? We acknowledge, right, that institutions are trying to define those. Foundations are trying to define what are these healing-based practices. How do we measure healing, right? And really our communities have that wisdom and have been having that wisdom for thousands of years, right? So healing involves a basic logic of transformation or transmutation from sickness to wellness enacted through culturally salient actions. Common healing practices include the use of medicines, which are inclusive of methods of getting things out of the body to heal the body, manipulations of the body through touch and gestures with specific materials, diagnostic or other practices, use of rituals and ceremonies, and interaction between patient and healer or whole group or community. So some of the healing practices could be somatic practices, could be a broad range of things that actually our communities are doing every day. So that's what we mean by healing-based practices. With social justice youth development, as I had mentioned earlier, it does recognize systemic forces such as systemic racism and supports young people in developing the skills and knowledge necessary to transform the systems that influence their lives, neighborhood, and broader community. An example is youth-led organizing, student activism, campaign to address a school or community concern, efforts to change a social condition through public policy. And this framework is really rooted in agency, empowerment, healing, self-determination, belonging, connectivity, connectedness, civic engagement. We definitely know that part of healing could be an experience of realizing that we have agency to change the systems that impact our lives. So that is part of empowerment. That is part of healing. There's a lot of misconceptions about this framework, so we want to make sure that we took the time to clarify, right, the intention and meaning of this framework. All right, so with that said, we'll move forward to eligibility criteria. If your organization has an office located in California, right, and meets all of the eligibility criteria, then please apply, right? So we'll go through them real quick. Provide services in California, are a 501c3 community-based organization or tribal organization with established and trusted community relationships. We know that we move at the speed of trust, so we want to make sure that organizations applying are ideally based in the communities that they serve. Fiscally sponsored projects are eligible. This funding opportunity is also open to coalitions of organizations and collaboratives. So you could have a lead organization, right, for your coalition or collaborative apply, as long as the lead organization is an eligible applicant. For-profit entities are not eligible to apply with a fiscal sponsor, not even with a fiscal sponsor, so not for-profit entities. Eligibility criteria include having demonstrated experience or just demonstrated experience partnering with young people of color and other marginalized communities. Awarded organizations should have a history of working with impacted communities, including representation on its board, staff, organizational leadership. We're going to be looking at that in some of the application process as well. Applicants must have demonstrated evidence of inclusivity and shall not discriminate based on race, color, religion, creed, gender, gender expression, age, national origin, disability, marital status, sexual orientation, or military status in any of its activities or operations. Must not have an annual budget in 2023 that exceeds 3 million. So unfortunately, organizations, if your annual budget is above 3 million, your organization is not eligible for this funding opportunities. However, pass-through non-recurring funding for COVID-19 immediate relief can be excluded from the 2023 budget requirement, and also for travel organizations that have a department leading this work, the 3 million budget is applicable to the department's budget and not the travel organization's budget in total. And I appreciate the hands being raised. We'll definitely have 3 sections of Q&A. And also, if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A function and we'll definitely note it. Eligible criteria must also is inclusive of demonstrated a need for capacity building within the organization and be able to provide a work plan to address those needs. We'll be working on a work plan with awarded partners, but we will be looking in the application process that organizations can have experience with providing work plans and working on them. Lastly, no, there's a couple more, but community-driven approaches to program development and implementation. Community-driven approaches. Other eligibility criteria include at least 2 full-time staff or the equivalent of staff hours available to provide direct services to the community. Formerly incarcerated and/or justice impacted staff is a plus. A track record of working with at least 10 community members continuously and over time in a caseload or case management capacity is also a criteria. An ability and interest in expanding organizational capacity and practice to serve youth involved in the criminal legal system. For organizations that are already serving youth, this means providing programming services and care to youth and their families. For orgs not yet serving youth, that means expertise and a track record in working with or in the mental health, behavioral health systems. All right. So that is the eligibility criteria, pretty expensive. But hopefully that is the necessary information for organizations to apply confidently. And with that said, we'll move forward with determining the TA technical assistance and regional county needs. So this initiative and RFA application, the request for application document includes an organizational TA questionnaire and a regional county needs questionnaire. Because of timing constraints and considerations, we have folded these questionnaires into the RFA itself. And I just want to say I apologize because there's so many questions to the RFA, and we definitely want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge that it is a lot of questions, and we recognize that does take time. However, we also need these responses to be able to tailor this initiative to the particular organizations and to the particular regions. So with that context, we'll go a little bit into depth about the TA needs assessment questionnaire. A total of 10 questions are in the TA needs, trying to understand what technical assistance needs of the community-based organizations are, particularly focused on expanding organizational capacity and programmatic activities for youth involved in the criminal legal system. The question topics include organizational administrative TA needs, juvenile justice law and policy TA needs, stakeholder connections and engagement needs, as well as financial stability needs. So that is the TA needs questionnaire. The regional county needs and other questions are a total of 6 questions aimed at understanding the landscape of youth serving organizations and programs with the communities of focus, particularly those serving youth involved in the criminal legal system. The question topics include existing youth serving organizations. And definitely want to share that the intention is not for the organization or the staff person assigned to filling out this application to go out and do a lot of research. Just based on your knowledge, do you know who's serving this group of youth? Who are serving youth? What organizations are serving youth in your region, in your county? What type of services, right? Are there interests and limitations in working with youth involved in the criminal legal system in your region or county? We know that working with some populations of youth is still very stigmatized, and there's not a lot of funding for it, right? So we want to make sure that we're trying to understand the landscape, the challenges in increasing organizational capacity in your region, and the opportunities for restructuring and enhancing existing work. So those will be giving us a sense of the regional county needs. If awarded, we will also tailor specific technical assistance to organizations based on a survey provided by the conservation company, TCC. They have a survey you can look up. It's called the TCC Groups Core Capacity Assessment Report Survey. It looks at helping organizations and nonprofits become resilient and sustainable, and to determine how to deliver programs and services most effectively. The assessment survey identifies strengths, challenges, capacity building priorities of the organization. It provides a report to those organizations and complementary TA. The data collected through the CCAD is one input to help determine funded partners TA. So we are providing several offerings, right, to awarded partners. And this include not only TA by Public Works Alliance, the National Center for Youth Law, the Center, right, TCC, but it also provides opportunities for peer-to-peer learning. Now, I'll pass it a little to the team here to speak on specific TA provided by our TA partners throughout this initiative. So we'll start with Public Works Alliance, who will share and go a little bit more in depth about the TA they provide.
Thanks, Abraham. We are shifting the power. The power is coming from Medicaid, and at Public Works Alliance, we support the CalAIM reform of Medi-Cal in California, namely to support smaller community-based organizations to access Medi-Cal and other funding sources as well in local probation, city and municipal funding streams. Public Works Alliance supports the organization in terms of technical assistance and supporting the organization to shift and be in position to access these health funds. So we work with each organization to assess and tailor the support as needed. And I'll pass it to Alejandra.
Great, thank you so much. So our team, the Youth Justice Team at Nickel, has been in partnership with dozens of community-based organizations in various counties in California for several years. And what we have found are different patterns of the type of support that CBOs oftentimes need. And you'll see the bullets here. These are some of the areas that we've identified as, again, those areas that organizations can benefit from some support, and these are the areas that we're able to provide support through this initiative. So oftentimes our community capacity building efforts are really focused on helping CBOs either develop, build out, or scale up the programs that they have available for young people and the services that they have available for youth. So whether that means supporting them through some of the different administrative needs like legal support, whether it's informing them of confidentiality laws, privacy laws, any part of the legal aspect of this work, that is the type of support that we're able to offer. But oftentimes it comes down to really just identifying some of the best practices and some of the different programs that we know are the most effective, and helping organizations learn about those different services and be able to scale them out, whether they want to offer these programs inside juvenile facilities, for example, or out in the community. A big part of this is also helping organizations develop strong data collection and evaluation mechanisms so that they're able to track the outcomes that these services are having on young people, so that they can better advocate for more resources and funding, and again, to be able to strengthen and scale up what's available for youth out in the community. So these are a lot of the different areas that we see falling under the more like service delivery model. So what services are people trying to integrate in their community for youth? Another part of the community capacity building support is helping organizations develop strategic advocacy plans to really engage in advocacy at the local level, helping community organizations and advocates prepare to enter different decision-making spaces, to interact with system stakeholders and ultimately the audiences that have a lot of decision-making power, so that they can really push for their local system to shift in alignment with the things that we know work, which is a lot of what I mentioned earlier, things that are rooted in positive youth development and really integrating health-based approaches. So the local advocacy part is really focused on systems change, and there's a lot that goes under that, whether it is preparing to meet with system stakeholders or preparing your message and having a strong strategic communications plan to be able to push for these changes at the local level. Sometimes the advocacy, not sometimes, I would say most of the time, it requires young people to be involved. So we want to make sure that CBOs have the support to build out the leadership of young people, and that young people are supported to be able to lead these efforts alongside us. At the end of the day, the support that we offer is really led by the organization that we're working with. So we help with assessing what those needs are, and we tailor the support to fit those needs. So I will leave it at that. There's a lot more to say about this support that we have available, but we'll be able to answer questions during the Q&A portion if I can expand on any of this. So I will hand it back to Abraham.
Thank you so much, Alejandra and Michelle, Dr. Michelle Payne. Powerful organizations that will be supporting this initiative, right? For organizations that are considering in their strategic plan getting one step closer or building the capacity to be one step closer to accessing Medi-Cal funding revenue or funding streams. This is an opportunity here. All of that TA provided by PWA will be geared, as Dr. Michelle Payne mentioned, helping organizations be one step closer to that. And it's about accessing health healing funds that our youth need in the community by community-based organizations. Also, powerful TA provided by the Center, the National Center for Youth Law, as Alejandra explained. It will require youth involvement, their leadership, their participation, in a broad range of efforts. So from policy to even be involved in strategic planning in their own regions and counties. So with that, really motivated just to hear all of this powerful work that each of our TA partners does respective and independently. So with that said, let's also take a moment to do some somatic movement. You know, it is a 2-hour webinar, and just if you feel comfortable and if you feel like you need to move or stand or sit, you also want to make sure that we're infusing that throughout the webinar, some somatic breaks, get the blood circulation going, because we're also gonna get into depth about more technical things such as financial documents and payment schedules and all that fun stuff. All right, so with that, the requested financial documents and information, applicants will be asked to submit at least one of these. So if your organization is emerging and you're like, what's a financial audit or what does that look like? Don't worry, we're actually looking for those types of organizations because at the end of this initiative, we want to make sure that organizations definitely know what a financial audit is, what some of these documents demonstrating general ledger reporting capacity capability is, right? So we want to actually be able to help organizations at the end of this say, yeah, we have not just one, we have maybe two, maybe more. But for this application process, we want to get a sense of where applicants are at. So we are also asking for the most recent 990 form, the most recent financial audit, a document listing accounting software, or detailing the organization's financial infrastructure. So that this could be a Word document turned PDF, which says our staff member does this internally, or you could say this is done by a contractor, an accountant, or this is done by our fiscal sponsor. This is the program they use. So you could share with us some of those ways that your organization's doing accounting. We also are asking for a document demonstrating general ledger reporting, just so that we get a sense that your organization throughout the initiative can actually share with the center financial reporting, financial reports. They will be asked quarterly. The organization's annual budget approved by a board of fiscal sponsor or advisory board. We're definitely going to be looking at the 990 form, the organizational annual budget, making sure that your organization is within the criteria of under 3 million, and also just be able to share with our funders, like or with our stakeholders, right? Maybe we got a lot of applications that are like under 100,000 or within the $500,000 range. This allows us to build a case for the need that's out there in terms of emerging CBOs. All right, with that said, if awarded, responsive payment schedule. If your organization is awarded, you can expect to be paid in a minimum of 3 payments with 40% up upon execution of award agreement and fulfilling of insurance requirements, which we'll go into 40% after that, after submitting the report in June 30, 2025, and then 20% after submitting progress report 5 due December 12. Examples of potential funded activities include programmatic activities that establish a pre-arrest diversion program, develop an intensive community-based behavioral health program for youth accused of serious and violent offenses, increased housing and employment services for youth involved in the criminal legal system. So it could be housing, could be programming, could be intensive behavioral health programs. It can also be capacity building activities, which could include activities related to partnership development, bringing folks together, increase organizational capacity to receive Medi-Cal funds. This could be data infrastructure, programming, capacity training related to case management. We know that some of the requirements are pretty costly. Staff training on related content. Could be training on healing-based practices, trauma-informed organizational policies, trainings on secondary vicarious trauma, practices that can help staff and participants heal and have sustainable involvement. So all of that could be organizational capacity building activities, along with programmatic activities. What we will not fund debt retirement. We will not fund operational deficits, politically partisan activities, explicitly religious activities, activities that exclusively benefit the members of sectarian or religious organizations, purchases of vehicles, purchases or construction or permanent improvement other than minor remodeling of any building, other facility or land. So we do have some questions once in a while. Can I purchase land with this money? Unfortunately, no. I also want to remind folks that this is state allocated funding. So we definitely have the same restrictions. It is from a public funding source. It is provided by the Office of Youth and Community Restoration through the center at Sierra Health. With that said, definitely want to go into awarded partner requirements. Upon announcement of the awarded partners, awarded organizations will be required to submit a detailed cost budget, a budget narrative, and a work plan. So those are the three things that will be asked. And this will take place around September, late August. The budget narrative, and the work plan. It must be consistent with the proposed project plan. Could include youth stipends, youth incentives, appropriate staffing levels, things like that. It can include travel costs or at minimum 3 in-person community of practice convenings. So please budget for that. Please maybe even include it in your calendaring if you're awarded, because these are requirements post announcement or upon announcement. The budget narrative work plan must include an indirect cost of no more than 20%, a detailed engagement with each initiative TA partner that will be folded into the work plan. Align, complement, be responsive to TA needs assessments, and be responsive to the TCC organizational report, to the TCC questions, the survey that they're going to use to produce that report. So please keep this in mind for those organizations that will be applying. If awarded, what will be asked. We definitely didn't want to ask for all of that at this point in the process. So with that, we'll move to quarterly reporting. Awarded organizations will also be required to submit regular quarterly progress reports responding to the performance measures identified in their agreement, work plan, financial reports, and detailed expenditures. So the quarterly reporting questions are here. They're, we're trying to make sure that it's not too intensive. Just based on your work plan, what's the progress made on the goals you identified? What are the challenges? How can the TA providers better serve organizational needs? And how can the center better support your organization? Anything else you would like to share? So we want to keep it simple. We're working with our team to see the type of mechanisms to submit these quarterly reports. Currently, it will be, I believe, through Salesforce, through a template, but we are in conversations to see if we can move that to just interviews or just, a meeting, quarterly meeting. So we'll get back to y'all, to those are awarded organizations. But for now, please be prepared for these quarterly reporting questions and asks, which include the financial reports on detailed expenditures. Here is a table for y'all to get a sense of the reporting and data requirements. Say we're in September 1st, right? There's an announcement. At some point, organizations will be able to work from September 1st to December 13th on this work plan, the budget, and the budget narrative. So we have time, and you will be supported. So just know that. Progress report number 2 is due December 14th, along with the financial report. And that's along with the work plan and the budget narrative. So we'll kind of, I'm just realizing, actually, no. Progress report 2 is actually going to be due March 31st. So apologies for that. I was getting confused. But that's what you can expect to submit report 2, March 31st. Progress report 3, June 30, 2025. Progress report 4, September 30, 2025. Progress report 5, December 12, 2025. Report 6 and annual financial report 2 is on March 31. Progress report 7, June 30, 2026. Progress report 8, September 30, 2026. And a cumulative report and cumulative financial report due October 30, 2026. Some folks might say, well, why is this kind of like December 13 and December 14 and such? What we wanted to do is we want to also be mindful of organizations that, you know, have much needed breaks or deserve much needed breaks during these times. We don't want organizations to be working on reports throughout those much needed break times. So want to make sure that folks can at least submit that before, right? Like December 13th, and then we could start the other progress report timeline after that. So December 14th to March 31st. So that's the idea behind some of these dates, trying to be mindful of some of the organizational workload, and definitely for awarded partners, we can discuss that even further. As said, evaluating the center's capacity building and TA efforts. We will be hiring an external consultant to evaluate and improve our capacity building initiative. They will be having their own learning questions throughout and asking us ourselves, along with TA partners, how can we improve based on this initiative. The aims are really to share insights to strengthen organizations, lessons learned, recommendations for future initiative funding. We could report this back to the state as lessons learned, and to point to the need that California needs more investment in capacity building for CBOs. Awardees must participate in evaluation activities to help assess our capacity building endeavors. Okay, so for the community of practice convenings, we're asking awarded organizations to attend at least 3 of them. The purpose of the in-person convenings is to foster cross-site learning, build collaboration, establish network to adopt best practices. The convening timeline. We have a kickoff in the fall of 2024, mid-initiative Q2, quarter 2, 2025, and the end of initiative Q3, 2026. I definitely want to say, I'm sorry, and I also apologize a second time for the delay. You know, we were supposed to launch and do the kickoff probably this summer, right? But we did run into some budgetary challenges in the state, and we had to postpone this webinar twice. So for all of y'all that registered and then it was canceled and then registered again and then it was canceled, we sincerely apologize for that delay. And that pushed the kickoff all the way to this fall. So, and that's even right. Like we want to make sure what day in the fall. Like, is this September, October? So that's actually tentative. However, please prepare the more or less the quarter timeline somewhere in the fall 2024, somewhere quarter 2 2025, and sometime in quarter 3 2026. If awarded, or organizations will also be asked for insurance requirements. These insurance compliance documents must be submitted to the center within 30 days of executing your agreement. If you don't have some of these insurance compliance documents, but you've been awarded, we will help you and figure it out. You can even maybe add it to the budget. So we want to make sure that this is not a barrier to why an awarded organization selected by a review committee, or recommended by a review committee and selected by Office of Youth and Community Restoration, is not able to move forward. So we don't want this to be a barrier. With that said, insurance must be maintained through the duration of the project and renewed if necessary. Important additional insureds must be written exactly as stated in your contract agreement, and payments will not be released until accurate and complete insurance requirements are received. There's a resource here, Count on Profits, Insurance Services. The first one, we're asking for commercial general liability. Each occurrence must be greater than or equal to $1 million. Coverage trigger, occurrence must be present. General aggregate must be greater or equal to 2 million. All right. General aggregate, I went over that. Products completed, operations aggregate must be greater to or equal to 2 million, and primary non-contributor endorsement must be present. We also are requesting professional liability. Each claim must be greater or equal to 1 million. Aggregate must be greater or equal to 2 million. Improper sexual conduct and abuse. Each occurrence must be greater or equal to 1 million. Aggregate must be greater or equal to 2 million. Automobile liability insurance combined single limit. Each accident must be greater or equal to 1 million. Coverage applies to owned, hired, non-owned autos. Additional insured endorsements must be present. Naming the center at Sierra Health Foundation and the state of California. So please read through these because there's additional insured endorsement requirements. Worker compensation and employer's liabilities also require statutory limits must be present. Employee liability on each accident must be greater or equal to 1 million. Liability disease. Each policy limit must be greater or equal to 1 million as well. Waiver of apologies for that. I just skipped this. Endorsement must be present. We're going to help organizations, right, make sure that they have all their insurance requirements that are necessary with all the details that are necessary. Because the additional requirements are the certificate holder must read Sierra Health Foundation in this way, right, be rated at least A-. It must include a description of operations, and it must read in this way and include the agreement number here, number 233138, which is the contract between the center and Office of Youth and Community Restoration. Lots of insurance requirements, but I want to acknowledge that and also say that we're going to support organizations through this. So we'll get through this together. All right, so this brings us to the review of applications, and I have about 5 minutes, so I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. With that, we have about 5 minutes till we get to a section of questions. All right. The Center, PWA, and NICO will serve as the review and recommendations committee, and we will recommend 8 applications to OYCR to review and approve. Our committee recommendations will be based on here. We want to look at applicants with the most complete and responsive applications that show the most favorable mix of credentials, capacity, potential, cost, and overall strength of the implementation team and proposal. An application appeal process is not available for this funding opportunity. Want to make sure that is reflective of guiding principles that are shared in the visual in the webinar and is stated in the RFA. We want to make sure that the application is reviewed with the following criteria. We're going to be looking, as it was shared earlier as well, organizational experience and track record, need and intended participants, capacity building work plans, use of funds, more like use of funds, right, in your budget proposal, or the way that your what your project and program is aiming for. And we will also be looking at organizational capacity and TA assistance needs. Factors that inform the final slate of awarded organizations include demographic diversity, underserved youth population, geographic coverage, programmatic approaches, as I mentioned, social justice, youth development approaches, positive youth justice approaches are a plus. OYCR holds final decision-making authority in selecting funded projects. The application timeline, the deadline is Thursday, the opening of the application just took place right this month. The deadline is Thursday, August 15, 2024 at 1 p.m. The review of applications will take place August 19th to August 30th. Approximate award announcement is week of September. Approximate subcontracts issued in November. We just want to make sure that there's plenty of time for organizations to be able to submit all the requirements upon announcement that were shared, right? All funding will be backdated September 1st, just FYI. And the work plan, the budget narrative, the final one will be submitted. You could submit it the latest December 12th. Okay, application checklist, please make sure that you have these right already. or if not, like at least one of them, right? The 994 financial audit, right? What we went over. For sure, that what will be required will be the organizational signed W-9. That will be required. And those awarded will be asked for a determination letter or a fiscal sponsorship agreement with the determination letter signed W-9 of your fiscal sponsor. So just as an FYI, that's the one that is required. Another required is a signed document by the executive director, a signed Word PDF document or PDF document that includes the ED signature at the bottom as a commitment to the affirmation of the below. We just want to make sure that organizations actually have a buy-in from the executive team, right? There's a senior administrator or board, right? That is demonstrating willingness to commit staff time and resources to add new activities. Want to make sure that this has buy-in from the whole organization, and affirm the applicant's ability to submit data, financial progress reports on specific set of measures, and affirm the participation activities in the listed in the RFA. Application checklist continued. You will be asked to complete and submit a technical assistance question document that includes 10 questions. A completed regional needs assessment question document that has 6 questions. And if you are unable to submit your application online or need help, please contact us at tyj@sierrahealth.org with the subject line TYJ CBO CBI application online help. With that, upcoming office hours, Tuesday, August 6th, 2024, from 3 to 4 p.m. We'll be doing office hours. Also, August 8th, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And also August 13th, from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. With that, it is 2 p.m. and we're on time. So with that, I'll pass it to Alejandra for this question section.
Yes, so a lot of good questions have come in. Please keep them coming. There were several questions about eligibility, so those have been answered in terms of like area. There were questions about the $3 million maximum, and also questions about what the funds can be used for. There are several unanswered questions, so we can go through those quickly. There are 2 questions regarding how the funds can be used. Can they be used for a magnetic lock door to bus youth in for services? And can they be used for, oh gosh, there was another one, for skills training for youth?
Definitely for skills training for youth. And the magnetic door, right, in the application, you would have to definitely justify the budget allocation towards the work plan goals. So we encourage you to share with us how that expenditure is adding capacity to your organization to serve and meet the needs, and more specifically, meet the social determinant health needs of youth. So that's a way that I could answer your question so far, and also pass it to Dr. Michelle Payne and Kaya and Alejandra, if y'all want to add anything to those responses.
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm muted. Okay. Basically what Abraham said, if it is meeting a condition to meet deliverables, which is in that case, security for therapy sessions or securing their space.
Great. There are a few questions about the priority areas. So there's a question about, so it says, what if we are not in one specific region, but service the areas that are in the 4 priority regions?
Most definitely. What I could say is that an application will be stronger if the organization is based out of the region in the and/or county in which the community that they serve lives. So, Dr. Michelle Payne, anything you'd like to add to that question?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of questions around the area. So Los Angeles, Bay Area, those are areas that this funding source is not for. However, if you are an organization in that area and you have a operation in one of these rural areas, if you have deep connections even to organizations and to networks, then there is a viable application for you to submit. Now, if you are in these major urban centers and you're thinking about going into these rural areas for the purpose of this grant, we don't advise that. It won't be as competitive as other applications. So if you are already in some rural areas, but you also have a main office in Los Angeles or the Bay Area or Sacramento area, then go ahead and propose the project that you would be shifting resources and expertise and staffing to these rural areas for the purpose of serving the communities in these areas.
Great. A question that's somewhat similar, I think it's been answered, but just want to make sure we cover it. If CBOs qualify for priority, do they qualify in one of the priority areas if majority of their youth comes from one of the listed counties? So I'm assuming it's an org that is not in the priority area, but majority of their youth are coming from there.
Ah, it's interesting. It would depend on, yeah, that's an interesting, I would be curious what region that is that the young people are coming from, but they're being served somewhere else. I know that happens a lot, but if that is the primary, if it's a number that's big enough, then yeah, I mean, submit the proposal to explain how you are operating in that region. If you're not operating in that region, then it doesn't really, it's not the same.
Yeah, definitely. What I will add to that is thank you, Alejandra and Dr. Machado. Definitely what's being shared is how your application could be more competitive. Please let us know the relationship you have in these regions and or how you're operating in these regions. Please emphasize that in your application. Definitely will make it more competitive. Pass it back to you, Alejandra.
Okay, so again, there were many questions about this. I think they're being answered with what you both are saying. If I dismiss or answered your question and you still have need more clarification, please let us know. There was another question about the question in the RFP about serving 50 youth a year. So are programs required to serve a minimal of 50 justice-involved youth each year or serve a total of 50 youth? I'm assuming they're differentiating between justice-involved and non.
So the 50 is a target number. It is not a exact target, but it is for justice involved young people, 50 justice involved young people, not just 50 young people that might include children or adults or young adults. And again, it's a rule. This funding source is for rural areas where there's not as much of a intense need, and so it really is about not necessarily about the number 50 young people, but that the work you're doing in these rural areas is deep enough and durable enough that it's worth the squeeze in terms of we're trying to support organizations in these areas to support work being done in these areas. So we understand that there is going to be less opportunity in terms of institutions in these areas. And so we appreciate all of the larger organizations on this call trying to figure out how to engage and support these rural areas either through direct engagement or partnering. So there are opportunities for creative proposals, but you want to keep in mind that at the end of the day, the organizations that get selected are organizations that have the best proposal for providing service and care in those rural areas.
Great, thank you so much. There's a question about the $3 million budget maximum. Is that for 2022-23 or 2023-24?
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's something that we could definitely discuss because we understand that some of the fiscal years, right? It's like June to July or June to May, or something like in half if that F20 fiscal year 22-23, right, still falls. Um Honestly, just please submit if you had one of those years under 3 million. We'll definitely take it back to the committee and discuss. But any Dr. Machel Payne or Alejandra, any preference to that? One year they might have gotten a little bit over 3 million. The other year they might have gone under that. 23 includes reporting on possibly 2 fiscal years. We're already in past summer 2024, so.
Yeah. Hmm.
We can also come back to we'll come back. We'll definitely include this in the FAQ document. But if you have like if fiscal year 2022 to 2023 and it's under 3 million, just yeah, you can submit that.
Great. There is a question about the eligibility criteria in regards to working with at least 10 youth in caseload/case management capacity. So if they are providing like curriculum and training to young people, but they don't case manage, are they eligible?
It depends on what other services are being provided. Case management is definitely a stronger proposal because it's more durable work that can meet the criteria of the technical assistance that's being offered. If your organization is doing a lot of events where people come and go and maybe sign a sign-in sheet is not the type of service that we're trying to strengthen through this funding source. We're trying to strengthen more longer-term support for these young people and their families.
Great. The last question I see is whether a federally recognized tribe from San Diego County, are they eligible?
Yes, tribal organizations can apply.
I think that's it for now. We'll have another portion just shortly, so just keep the questions coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you so much, and Dr. Machel Payne. And at this moment, I'll pass it to my colleague and team member, Antonia Gonzalez, who will share the next set of slides.
Thank you, Abraham. Thanks for pulling those slides up as well. The next portion that we're going to be covering is the actual application process within the portal that we have provided for this RFA. Thank you. So the form is linked in the request for applications. It could be found under the application checklist. It is also bolded in the RFA under apply here. And you can find, and there are a couple of different areas where it is linked. So once you click on that link, it'll take you to this first page here. It's going to be asking about the if you're going to be applying with a fiscal sponsor or if you are an eligible organization and you will be applying on your own. A fiscal sponsor is an organization that extends its 501c3 to, for example, a grassroots organization that does not hold their own 501c3. So if you are applying with a fiscal sponsor, you click yes. And if you are not, you are the applying organization, go ahead and click no. Again, thank you. And then as you're moving through here, want to emphasize the save my progress and resume later function. If you are completing your application, you are able to save it. Please be sure to confirm your email is correct. If you are having a hard time being able to log back in with your email and password that you provide and the password created, please feel free to reach out to our inbox at tyj@shfcenter.org. I'll be happy to help you. But really want to emphasize going through the PDF of the request for applications and grabbing those questions from there and then transferring them to a document. If this has to be a collaborative effort, you'll be able to work with your colleagues to answer those questions. So when you get to this page, you'll be able to just plug in your answers. Really want to emphasize this because if you wait to the last minute and for whatever reason you're not able to apply, it's not guaranteed that we'll be able to grant an extension for the application. For the first page, you'll fill out the application information. So again, if you are going to be applying with a fiscal sponsor, the fiscal sponsor is who the center will contract with. The contract will be addressed to this fiscal sponsor, and this is where that information would be. So the organization with a 501c3 would fill out this information here. Please also include the annual budget, your organization tax ID, your legal standing, and then if you have a financial audit or not. Again, as mentioned earlier about financial documents, clicking yes or no won't necessarily disqualify you from this opportunity. The CEO director, again, of the applying organization, the organization with a 501c3 of the fiscal sponsor. The applying contact information, this could either be the, say, a director of programs. This could be the program manager, the program coordinator. They will also be receiving notification of the award announcement. So I definitely recommend including a person besides the CEO to be the additional contact. You will also be given the option to provide information for a financial officer. So if this is your grants management, if this is whoever runs accounting, things like that, and as well as for the contract administrator, again, not required, but highly recommended. So if you are applying with a fiscal sponsor, this is your applying organization, and the organization, the fiscally sponsored, who is going to be, you know, boots on the ground, executing the work. This is where that information would be included. So the organization, the grassroots organization would include their organization name here, and as well as a contact from the sponsored entity. I highly recommend this being either the executive director or a lead of this organization. Yes. Here's where you would provide the name of the project and a brief purpose of the project. Typically, this would be, for example, to build the organizational capacity in you know, one of the counties. This is something that it would look like, basically just giving us a brief overview of what you expect to do. The project start date, project end date, and the amount requested are non-editable, so the awards are set at 500,000. So these areas you won't have to worry about changing. Project geography, you would be able to fill out if you're going to be conducting work in more than one of the eligible counties. You'd be able to decide what the percentage would be, and it should all add up to 100. It'll give you an error if this is not updated. The estimated number of folks that you anticipate be affected by your project. So please refer to the RFA for the minimum requirement, and then also providing if you're going to be serving urban, rural, or both. The percentages of the race and ethnic groups of the population that will be affected. So whatever your target population is in the communities that you serve would be included here, and would also have to be total to 100%. Project H group, the activities that we are focusing on should be related to transitional age youth, which is 12 to 26 years old. So please keep that in mind as you are completing this. This should also add up to 100%. additional areas of focus. This helps us to know if something comes down the line, we can identify which organizations are, in addition to the work that they're doing with justice involved youth, what other work that they're doing as well. So if they're working with 2S LGBTQ plus youth, foster youth, we'd be able to know that information. And then, as mentioned before, we would also like to know the racial ethnic makeup board of the board and the staff. This gives us a better idea if, the staff reflects the populations that are being served. As mentioned before, you would also be going through narrative questions. If you look through the PDF version of the RFA, you'll be able to see the complete questions, but these are the major topics that we will be covering. Really want to highlight this attachment page. When you reach this portion of the online application, it'll be under required attachments, but I really want to emphasize that the financial documents listed here are optional. This is just going to give us a better idea of the organization's financial standing and their capacity, and be able to help us when we develop a work plan for awarded organizations if one of the objectives needs to be something along the lines of building financial capacity. But required attachments are going to be the applying organization's W-9. So if you're applying with a fiscal sponsor, it would be this W-9. A letter of support. This letter of support is going to be signed by the executive director. This is just saying that your ED is going to be providing support to your program's objectives. So it's going to say that, this organization is going to be able to complete progress reports, any requirements of the grant, of the award. Also required, the organizational technical assistance needs assessments and the regional county needs and other questions. This is linked in our RFA, I believe under application checklist. You can download this, fill it out, and upload it to the attachments, or the questions are also listed in the RFA, and you can grab those from there and put them on a separate document. Just please keep in mind, if you do a separate document, that we're asking about a 250 word limit. This is what it would look like once you upload it. Please only upload one file at a time, or one file for each requirement, and please upload them in the format that is requested, so either a Word or a PDF document. Again, this is going to give you instructions for the optional financial attachments. And I'll pass it back to Abraham to reiterate the topics that are going to be covered in Form 1 and Form 2.
Thank you so much, Antonia. And Form 1 will be the organizational TA needs assessment questions. Again, what we are asking is just needs around organizational administration, juvenile justice law and policy, adolescent development and best practices for youth. We want to, for example, know, does your organization need TA around programming? How do we create a program that's youth development informed or based or rooted, like things like that. You want to go into some policy area or understanding a policy area to better serve justice and youth involved with the criminal legal system, then this is the type of responses that we need to tailor that TA. Settings where populations are served. We want to get a sense of how and where you are serving the youth. Engagement activities as well, core programs and services offered to the community and the primary source of funding. That will give us a sense as well in terms of how to best support your organization throughout the initiative. Form 2 is the regional county needs assessment. And again, we definitely don't mean for this to be a research task. Just want to know, based from your knowledge, And experience expertise is what are the existing youth serving organizations, programs, and services in your region or county? Youth involved in the criminal legal system, what are the current service providers? What motivation is there for working with this group of youth? What limitations are there? What can be restructured or enhanced or shifted? What challenges are there to reaching a target number of youth served? For example, the question around 50, right, came up. What would be some challenges around that? Or maybe you don't have a challenge in meeting 50 youth, serving 50 youth a year, but perhaps like your challenge is 100 youth, or we just want to make sure what is that challenge for you? An interest in expanding to serve youth and unforeseen challenges. So what are some of those? Those responses will give us a sense for sure around the regional landscape and the county regional needs. With that, I will also share a little bit of the financial audit, the reason why we're asking for these documents. Here, the financial audit is usually a report that contains the opinion of an independent auditor. Here's an example on the right. It is ours. It usually just says this opinion, right? The combined financial statements referred above present fairly, and that's not a bad thing, right? That's actually a good thing because it's like it's kind of fair, right? No, but all the audits, financial audits, kind of say that, right? It's like ideally they present fairly, and that's a good thing. So it definitely will also include statements, financial statements such as income, balance sheet, cash flow, shareholder equity, a statement on that. And the auditor reports can be found in companies' annual reports just before the financial page. So we're asking if you're familiar with this, do you have one? If you don't have one, you maybe could share with us why. The reason why we're asking for this is if your organization is looking to build capacity to access Medi-Cal funding, it might come with an audit. You're gonna hit a budget or a requirement that includes having something like this. And we want to make sure that at the very least, organizations that are applying for this funding opportunity become familiar with some of these financial documents and processes. The Form 990 is designed to increase financial transparency and includes revenue, expenditure, income data. It's an actual IRS form and is used to assess whether or not the nonprofit aligns with federal requirements for tax exempt status. So this is a picture of ours here. On the first page, you'll usually see the annual budget or more or less, right? The name of the organization, the identification number, telephone. Sometimes looks similar like a W-9. All right, here we have an example of an accounting software and financial infrastructure. For the purposes of this, you could actually submit a PDF Word document that includes this is our staff member assigned to this to accounting or to finance. This is the software that they use. This is the name of it. Just something like that, right? Want to make sure that we get a sense of whether this is internal. If it's something contracted to a third party, or if it's a fiscal sponsor that does this for you, for your organization, and what software do they use. That will also let our internal teams know how to best be responsive to this. There's a lot of reporting systems out there. There's a lot of accounting software, and it helps us coordinate on our end. All right, general ledger reporting capacity and capability. This is more, again, to just get a sense of whether your organization can produce a financial report. Like this, you will be asked for this award to produce quarterly reports. You want to make sure that that's not a barrier. And if it is, how could, we're not going to, none of this is like, all of a sudden you're not eligible. It will also let us know, okay, for them to be successful, we need to make sure we help them get there, these organizations get there so that they can successfully produce these reports quarterly. Again, this is a practice. We want to make sure that organizations are a step closer to be able to engage in reimbursable modeled contracts, right? We know that some contracting with public agencies like school districts, even CalAIM itself or Medi-Cal, right? Like county, state funding streams, sometimes it's on a reimbursable model. And it requires a lot of organizational budget, resilience, sustainability plan, right? And so part of this is just one step closer to that. We're beginning at the very basic, right? Are you able to share with us some type of ledger or financial reporting? That way we know the reporting capacity, capability of your organization. And the last thing that's not make or break, but it's not requirement, but it's optional. It's your organizational annual budget. Want to make sure that in a 12-month period, I know folks have said, is this fiscal year 2022, 2023, or 2023 and 2024? Share with us, right? Like the one that you want to share with us. It's not going to be a make or break if your budget is in one of those years, right? Is a little over 3 million. If say the prior year you were like at 2 million or even at 1 million, we know that sometimes organizations get one-time funding and it increases their organizational budget significantly. That's not going to make or break your application. We're really looking at applications that are going to be stronger, are going to be the ones that just share with us what is that project or program to build capacity for your organization to better serve youth involved in the criminal legal system. We're going to be weighing that a lot. Again, your organization annual budget, if you go you go a little bit over 3 million, what we definitely don't want to see is and I just want to be honest, like your organization's a $10 million budget, has a $10 million budget, right? We want to make sure that we're focusing organizations that are emerging that need this capacity building support. Usually organizations with $10 million or plus in annual budget, have some significant amount of infrastructure and capacity, right? So we want to prioritize building the capacity of smaller organizations in the community. That said, any questions here? And I'll pass it to Alejandra.
Yes, there are a few. So, do we need to budget for Public Works Alliance as a TA contractor? I think that was answered, but I want to give you a chance to answer again.
No, this is what makes this particular initiative unique, and I just want to share it like with as many folks as possible. What makes this initiative unique is that the state of California is allocating funding to CBOs to for funding to build capacity, and separately, the TA supports are already covered. The organizations do not need to allocate some other budget to that, and this capacity building is not just to cover TA support. So this is what makes it unique. Your organization had these $500,000 to build capacity within your own organization itself. The TA provided is free of cost.
Great. There are some questions about the financial audit. So what would the financial audit need to consist of? Expenses versus income, or just a forensic audit? And if we don't have audited financials, can we still apply?
Yeah, we're not requiring it at all. So yeah, if you feel like whatever audit you have is enough. It could be it's usually a third party that does this and produces a report and an opinion. That's quote unquote objective and per auditor compliance regulations. However, if you don't have any of this, it's not gonna make your application ineligible. Just share with us, you know what, like we don't yet, some organizations, right, like don't even yet have $1 million in the budget annually and don't even require, there's no need for an audit. So you could share with us like we just don't have it. Maybe if awarded, we will get a sense of what is needed to make sure that you are financially building that capacity to engage in accessing Medi-Cal or engaging in reimbursable contracts. So with that said, just want to emphasize, not having a financial audit does not make you ineligible.
Great. Can part of the program be job development? And if so, can we pay them, I'm assuming the young people, with a stipend based on total hours worked?
Dr. Machado. Oh, you're on mute.
I think that's the best thing we could possibly do is actually pay the young people. But I think that would have to be a part of the program. It would have to be included. So the most acceptable way to do that is as an advisory board or having young people be involved. But as far as a programmatic feature, then yes, if it is included in a programmatic expense to expand programming, then it should be articulated in that context.
Okay. Could the expense to get an audit done for the next 2 years be something this funding could cover?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. So there's an organization that provides prevention and tutoring programs, working directly with youth and families and providing classes and workshops. However, it's not in a traditional case management manner. Can this be considered a form of case management for eligibility?
More importantly, it can be expanded to include case management. So if you're providing lighter services that don't directly relate to case management, if you are looking to expand, grow, strengthen the existing staff and program structure to do that, then that is a stronger application.
Great. There is one last question that was already answered, but I think it might be worth answering again. It has to do with the priority areas and whether an organization that is not physically located in the priority area, but serving the priority area, can they still apply? I know this was answered, but we got many of these, so it might be worth just reiterating that.
To reiterate, if they are based in a not in a rural area, but they're providing service in that rural area as like an outpost or office or whatever, then yes, that qualifies.
Thank you for clarifying. Can funding be used for grant writing for program or organizational sustainability? Also, can it be used to fund a grant writing workshop for youth in the program so they can learn this skill set?
Again, yes to all of that. It's either operations or programming. So as long as it's articulated that way, then yes.
Great. Those are all the questions for now, and I believe we'll have one more Q&A at the end, so keep them coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alejandra and Dr. Machado Pena. At this moment, I'll pass it back to my colleague, Antonia, who will share about how to be competitive in your application.
Thank you, Abraham. So we're going to be covering how to be competitive. So a few key points of what competitive applications would look like. If you could move to the next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you. So competitive applications will have a complete and responsive application. So this means that you thoroughly went through the RFA and you understand the questions and the requirements that are being asked of you. So you're answering them thoughtfully and clearly. And so this also is going to include including a clear explanation that of the organization's strategy to implement the project, including a track record of engaging with the community, what the capacity building objectives will look like, and what they foresee for their to be able to do within the award timing. This also includes an innovative and culturally responsive approach with working with youth who are justice involved. This is also going to include a demonstration of using an equity framework. So folks have mentioned stipends, things like that. So really striving for health and racial equity within the program for the youth who are justice involved, in a deep commitment to these to the youth that are part of the target population, and really using an intersectional approach, understanding that there are more than one cause for why these youth may be justice involved, and how we can use this framework to be able to implement prevention activities. So some proposal writing tips. Again, read through the application and the instructions. Please verify that your organization is eligible, or that your fiscal sponsor is eligible. So please be sure to answer all the questions clearly. There is a word limit for most of the narrative questions at 250 words. So if you feel that I definitely suggest say what you mean, and answer the question that reflects your, as best as it reflects your organization, and then clearly explain the proposed project. And please be sure to check for consistency. These we are going to be reading through these applications, and a really competitive application will be able to tell a cohesive story. So your description, your activities will all align with you know, your assessment for technical assistance needs. Basically, we'll be able to get a 360 understanding of your organization and how we can support you through this award period. I definitely recommend someone who is not a part of your proposal process to read through your application to see that they have an understanding of what it is that you're trying to say. Us as writers, we know the idea that we have in our mind, and when we read something, we think it's very clear, but for someone that, you know, may not know what you're talking about, may not be clear. So please definitely consider doing that. And lastly, please ensure that you review the attachments checklist, ensure you have all the required documents. So that's going to, again, include the W-9, the signed letter of support, and the other assessments. Again, optional attachments or the financial documents. This is just detailing, giving us an idea of where the organization is for its financial capacity. Some submission tips. Using the Save My Progress and Resume Later button. Again, I recommend pulling the questions from the RFA to a separate document and working on those offline, and being able to collaborate with your colleagues within the organization. If you use the Save My Progress and Resume button later, you'll receive an email to your inbox and you'll be able to create a password and return to it. Submit that. Oh, I'm sorry. Submit the application before the deadline. If you run into any technical errors, it is best that you do this before the deadline, because again, there's not a guarantee that technical difficulty would grant you an exception to an extension. At this time, we're not granting extensions for this application. And again, as you're writing your responses, make sure to track your word count. For the application checklist, review the criteria and the instructions. Again, coalitions can apply as long as the eligible organization is the applicant. And let's see. Complete the application on the online portal. If you are a rural organization and you are experiencing technical difficulties being able to access reliable internet or Wi-Fi, please sending us an email at tyj@shfcenter.org, and so we can see how we can best support, or in that instance, this would be considered an instance where we could grant an extension. But again, it would need to be an extraordinary circumstance. And then the application questions need to be completed. And once again, the support letter from the admin or the ED stating that they have their support for the program. If you need any help submitting the application, please feel free to contact us at tyj@sierrahealth.org. I know I use tyj@shfcenter.org. Both emails will go to the same inbox to me. And please use the subject line OICR CBO application help. This gives us a better idea as to what's coming in. For upcoming office hours, please feel free to join us. You can use with your phone, you can scan the QR code, or you could also take down the shorthand URLs to be able to join in these sessions. They will be less structured. We will take answers live. People will be able to turn their camera on, speak to us freely and ask us questions. We can go either through the online application, answer questions about the RFA. Really, really a valuable time to get not necessarily one-on-one time with us, but be able to answer questions more directly. Thank you, and I'll pass this back to Abraham.
Thank you so much, Antonia. And at this moment, we definitely want to open it up to the last section of questions. With that, I'll pass it to Alejandra.
All right, so this is a good one. Is this the first solicitation of its kind?
The center itself has had capacity building initiatives in the past. One example, we are capacity building funding opportunities that are funded through Prop 64 and are through the Elevate Youth California program here. So it has happened before and through the center. What makes this not often the case is that organizations, the TA provided is already covered, and organizations are going to get a 500,000 over 2 years to build the capacity needed. So that is what makes it a little bit unique. And so hopefully that answers your question. And I'll pass it to Dr. Michelle Payne in case you want to add anything to that response.
Just to reiterate that the 500,000 over 2 years, a lot of the questions we're asking about budget, and it's hard to wrap your head around sometimes because it's not the traditional grant. You like Abraham said, the 500,000 is for you to determine what your organization will need to provide whatever you're proposing to provide in a rural area. So that might mean renting a place that you're already doing workout in this area to then establish an outpost, or increasing your infrastructure, hiring staff, doing whatever is necessary to scale up your proposed program and operation in those areas. And that we are here, Nicole and PWA, to be value added over these 2 years.
Great. Can you give an example of fiscal sponsors and coalitions that we can include with our applications? What determines these relationships?
I can step in to answer this question. So a fiscal sponsor is the applying organization. They hold the 501c3. This is typically a well-established organization. For example, the center has organizations that we are the fiscal sponsor for. Abraham can probably speak on that. So when organizations apply for this kind of funding, we are the applying organization, meaning that either we support with things like payroll, we help support submitting financial documents, progress reports, and we also extend our W-9 to the funder. So this typically would look like, for a coalition, for example, it would be, could be a handful of 2 grassroots organizations that are going to be coming together to execute this work in the case management or in the prevention activities. And there's an applying organization that comes and basically is the accountable for the reporting requirements. Hopefully that answers your question. Abraham, maybe you can expand on this a bit more.
Thank you so much, Antonia. And so one example I could give that's concrete and I really appreciate Antonio's responses. I'm just transitioning out of the California Alliance for Youth and Community Justice, and it's a coalition of over 30 organizations across 20 counties that's fiscally sponsored by the center. So an alliance could it be inclusive of it could be statewide, it could be regional, it could be within county. We want to make sure that if you're applying as a coalition, whether it be county, coalition, regional, or statewide, that the letter that usually is for the ED, right? Like you submit the ED buy-in, we have a letter from your coalition and alliance that there's buy-in from your coalition alliance to engage in this work, to apply on behalf of the alliance and the groups of organizations that are members of it for this funding opportunity. That's what we're going to be looking at. And as Michelle mentioned earlier, our attention is going to be focused on the proposal itself. So a coalition versus a fiscally sponsored project versus a 501c3 will not make you ineligible or make the difference. The difference will be on the proposal that you present.
We have two questions about how the funds can be used. Can the grant allow funding to hire a behavioral health provider or LMFT to help manage and counsel youth either pre-arrest or exiting the system?
Yes, absolutely.
And can the funding be used to help cover restitution costs for youth being released from custody?
I'm not sure about that.
That's something that we would have to run through the state in terms of utilizing the funds. We got to make sure that it doesn't. It could be right, like as Michelle mentioned, if you present in the proposal itself, it's like to serve the needs of youth involved in the punishment system or the criminal justice system, right? There are some barriers. We got to address some barriers, right? These are the needs that are rising, and this could be part of a barrier removal fund for to meet their some type of immediate financial need. It could be included as long as it's that is included in a broader project or program, or how your organization is going to be building capacity to serve this group of youth long term. Then please apply, and if it arises, say we get this application, it's recommended for an award, we'll make sure that OYCR it knows very well that some of the funding items or budget items are for restitution costs covered. And then they'll let us know whether that can take place, or they'll tell us, no, we can't use the money like that. And then we'll go back and forth. But please don't let this be the make or break on your submission. As long as you kind of let us know, articulate the bigger purpose. And Dr. Macho, anything you'd like to add, or Alejandra or Antonio?
Yeah, no, I think your answer was covered it, because it's not about that you're paying their restitution, but that it's part of a programmatic function to have petty cash for incidentals, and it's kind of like a AB 12 expense. But yeah, in the context of a program strategy is how you want to articulate it.
And a similar question says, would this funding include expunging records? I'm not sure if they mean if it could cover those costs, or if it could be used for expunging records. So maybe we can answer both.
Even if, so National Center for Youth Law, right? So like accessing them as expertise to do that, and then a line item for that expense, again, in a program write-up, that sounds like removing barriers. And especially if money is going towards legal consultation, or right, if you have somebody that's providing legal support to your families as well, that could be included. But I would defer to Nicole on the legal stuff.
All right. I don't see any other questions. Oh, we just got one that came in. In regards to capacity building and having all the parts in place, will the TA help or teach us how to get referrals build our client base to eventually make our youth justice involvement sustainable. Absolutely. I think that's a great example of the type of support that we're able to offer.
The best proposal is identifying clear needs like that. And that's what's different about this funding source is a good proposal is one that establishes a need for the grant and for the technical assistance. So it doesn't mean you're not already doing great work, but organizations in need is what this is about.
Great. I think that's it for Q&A.
This is so powerful. All the organizations, right, and that attended today is definitely inspiring. There's a lot of momentum and a lot of efforts in different areas to transform youth justice as we know it, to make sure that we build the infrastructure of care that's needed in the community by the community. That requires us to build the capacities to begin to access health healing funds that are sustainable, like Medi-Cal, CalAIM. Dr. Machel Payne is an expert in translating what organizations do into billable language. That could be one of the TA needs, right? Like, how do we begin to access these funding streams that you're speaking of? We're going to be trained on them, but how do we do that? Well, part of the TA is like, well, what are you doing with in terms of programs and services that can actually be translated to billable language? Dr. Machel Payne is an expert in that and can definitely continue to support that. Nickel team, expert on the range of policy-related issues, as well as youth leadership development, programmatic capacity building activities that are needed. You're getting not just two orgs, you're getting teams. And so it's really inspiring, as well as be able to work with Antonia, who's got an expertise in several rounds of the Elevate Youth Justice, has expertise working with lots of organizations across the state through that capacity. And so we're bringing to organizations in these regions that type of support, all in efforts to improve services that meet the needs of youth. And that's really what it's about, as Dr. Machel Payne also mentioned. And with that, I'll pass it to any closing comments. I'll pass it to the left, Alejandra, and then Dr. Machel, and then Antonia, and then we'll close out. I'll pass it to you, Alejandra, for a closing comment.
Yeah, I'll just share the excitement. This is a really wonderful opportunity for not just the organizations that will be selected, but the communities where these organizations live. And as it was mentioned, apologies that, there are certain regions or counties that are not included as a priority, but this was very intentional to make sure that those communities that have been under-resourced for a long time are able to get that support to just bring their work up to speed. And really, those are the places that, we really have to pay attention to. And we think that in supporting those regions, we will be in a better place as a state. So again, excited for this. If you all have any questions, please reach out at any time, and good luck with your applications. I will hand it to Antonia.
Thank you, Alejandra, for that remark. And I definitely want to reiterate that. But I can't say anything better than you did. So I want to definitely reiterate that folks are more than welcome to email us at tyj@sierrahealth.org for any questions and technical assistance needs. I'm more than happy to help folks through this process. Thank you.
And I'll just say this was great. And I see a lot of budget questions coming up. Just in general, if it's allowable in a typical grant for a nonprofit, then it's allowable for this. Typically, if it's not allowable, then similarly, it's not allowable for this grant. Anything that personally enriches individuals or relatives or organization, obviously, no. Purchases of, it's really about program and operational expenses for the organization for your programs. If it qualifies, then it likely qualifies for this.
Thank you all, and have a good rest of your day. The webinar, once it goes through accessibility, will be shared. And at this moment, we'll stop recording, and hopefully everybody has a good rest of your day. Thank you.